Crocoin is up 180% from its bear market bottom over the past 6 months, and we can see here that it has had a huge explosion in trading volume today, up 141% to over $70 million. Now, this comes after the Cronos chain saw a huge month of growth in terms of their active users, growing 65%, and we have just seen Crypto.com announce they are going to be launching their trading app in South Korea, one of the biggest markets for crypto. So in today's episode of the Everything Crypto Show, I'm going to break down why I believe this is such big news for this South Korea launch and why I believe that this could help drive a ton of volume and demand for Crocoin. Now, before we hop into the content, just a friendly reminder that I am not a financial advisor. I am simply here for your crypto news and entertainment purposes. And if you do enjoy the content, please consider hitting that sub and like button and turn that notification bell on so you can be notified when all of our latest videos go live on the channel. So we're going to get right into today's altcoin of discussion, and I do want to talk about Crocoin here, as we've seen some pretty big news for the project on the centralized side of things with Crypto.com, as well as on, the DeFi side of things here with the Cronos chain, both of which are looking to continue bolstering their growth trajectory. So we're going to start off with the Crypto.com news. I believe this is most likely what has driven the massive influx here in volume that we have seen, as mentioned at the beginning of the video. And that's the fact that the Crypto.com app is going live in South Korea on April 29th, where their retail users will soon have access to 150 plus cryptocurrencies offered through the Crypto.com app. So Crypto.com, trusted by more than 80 million customers worldwide and the industry leader in regulatory compliance, security, and privacy, announced today that it is launching the Crypto.com app in South Korea, which will allow Korean retail users in the market to trade select cryptocurrencies. And it's going to be starting off with, 150 plus cryptos, access to Crypto.com NFT, and as well as other, industry-leading user benefits and rewards offerings. They haven't said anything about the Visa yet, but I think if they can launch that in South Korea specifically, that would help drive a ton of demand for Crocoin. But we know that, the Crypto.com app does have other incentives for holding their native coin. So as a part of the app launch and in line with regulations, Crypto.com gave 30 days notice to users of its acquired OKBit platform that it was going to be ceasing services as of April 29th when the Crypto.com app will go live. And we heard from Eric Anziani here, the president and COO of Crypto.com. He says, "We are incredibly excited to be launching the Crypto.com app for retail users in South Korea, a market of tremendous importance to the growth of our business and one in which consumers are very interested in crypto. South Korean regulators are thoughtfully advancing the sector, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with them to help the industry grow responsibly." And it says here they will continue to consult with the South Korean regulatory authorities to ensure compliance with local laws and regulations with the highest standards of ethics, compliance, and risk management. And this has really been a big thing for Crypto.com, is getting that regulatory compliance in place to allow themselves to offer these crypto services globally. We kind of saw an opposite strategy from Binance, where they just began operating in a ton of different countries without all of the proper regulatory compliance and all the proper regulations in place. And it kind of did come back around in the end, and they did, they were basically forced to shut down their services in a bunch of countries. I know it happened in Germany and in a couple of other places that we were covering on the channel previously. I think Crypto.com has taken the much more, patient approach to it by essentially getting the regulatory approval first and then continuing or beginning to operate in these regulatory areas rather. So they say here this is their latest milestone in South Korea after securing their Electronic Financial Transaction Act and Virtual Asset Service Provider registrations in August of 2022. So this has been a long time in the making. And I do also want to briefly mention here, it says here that they acquired OKBit. And I did some research into this because I don't know if we covered this on the channel when it happened, but we can see here that this was actually an acquisition that they made back in 2022. And if you recall, August of 2022, we saw the bottom in about June of that year. Then altcoins dipped lower later that year. But this essentially was in the trenches of the bear market, and we saw Crypto.com at the time really just doing a ton of work to get regulatory approval, acquiring exchanges for cheap as the valuations came down across the entire crypto industry. We're talking prices of coins themselves, of these exchanges, the companies related to crypto. So Crypto.com opted to capitalize on this opportunity, and they did acquire the exchange OKBit back in 2022. And now we can see it almost a year and a half later. It is finally coming back around to benefit them as they are aiming to launch in South Korea. Now, based on Crypto.com's partnership with Visa, some forecast the exchange to also push out payments products in South Korea. And others say that such a plan would take significant time to materialize. And this is something I'm kind of waiting for as the next catalyst. I think that just the fact that Crocoin is the native token of Crypto.com, the fact that the app is launching in South Korea, and they do offer some benefits for actually holding this altcoin within the app, I do think that, that does just really help continue with that global adoption for the altcoin. However, the Visa does have more of a direct impact on this altcoin, as you're basically required to lock up Crow in order to get the Visa, and then you have to keep it there to continue receiving the benefits. And I've spoken about this Visa quite a bit on the channel. I do think it's pretty much one of the best crypto visas on the market that is offered on more of a global scale. And yeah, I would like to see them kind of aim to launch this next. I do think that would be a really smart move for the business. But as of right now, the fact that they are even able to launch in South Korea and just open up this market through their app, I think is very good for the company and shows that they are in a very good spot to continue capitalizing as the bull market proceeds. So, it doesn't hurt that Crocoin is in fact the native token and the face of the platform itself. Now, that's Crypto.com. I do also want to talk about the Cronos chain. We haven't covered this chain too much as of recently, unless there is kind of something actually going on. But I do think this is definitely worth taking a look at. So we had Ken Timsit here, who is basically, he's working at the Cronos chain. I believe I don't know if he's the CEO, but he's kind of like the head of the Cronos chain. He says, pleased to see that Cronos monthly active users grew plus 65% from February to March. And this was due to a lot of the top projects like VVS, Ibisus Bay, Corgi AI, Vano, Minted. And then we had some meme coins as well that was driving volume to the chain. We are back to inscriptions spike levels, but this is just a start. So I actually looked at the chart here because I know that when inscriptions were happening, the Cronos chain saw a massive influx of transactions. You can see that right here. I don't see transactions to where they were during inscriptions. I mean, they effectively came up from like 50,000 up to over 6.2 million, and now they've kind of stabilized in like the $60,000 to $70,000 or $60,000 to $70,000 transactions range. So I don't see that kind of volume in terms of the transactions. If we take a look at in terms of like daily token transfers, this does look here. We can see we had a big spike in token transfers. Not too sure what that was all about, but we can just take a look at some other charts here. The unique addresses chart, this also saw a nice uptick here, kind of going into the new year. And it's currently sitting at about 1.32, just under 1.33 million unique addresses on the chain. We can take a look at daily active Cronos addresses as well. And if we take a look at the level from even February, it's up pretty substantially. If we zoom in here on, let's say since January 1st, I mean, we were at about 8.7K, and now it's sitting here at about 10.1. So about a 15% increase there. So Cronos chain has been growing. It hasn't been like a crazy amount of growth, but it looks like that did change this past month with plus 65% monthly active users. And additionally, I do want to point out here that the Cronos chain, if we take a look at DeFi Llama, it's actually sitting in 14th place across all blockchains in terms of that TVL. The one thing I do want to mention, and let me actually zoom out here and go back to chain so we can look at it. This TVL, the one that a lot of people kind of look at, myself included, this actually does not include staking and liquid staking into the total value locked. I think that it should include both those metrics. I think a lot of people go to DeFi for passive income. And therefore it kind of does make sense. The liquidity pools, whatever it may be, I think that it does make sense to include staking and liquid staking in the tally. And if you actually include those in the tally, I believe it knocks back the TVL to, the ranking of Crocoin to about 16th instead of 14th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just load that up here. Yeah, and let's take a look now. Yeah, so it actually just knocks it down to 15th place, okay? And if we take a look here at the actual TVL chart for Cronos, you can see that it kind of has risen steadily, and it did coincide with the bottom in the Crocoin price for most part. And that's because the TVL for the Cronos chain does come also from the price of Crocoin, as that is the native token that is kind of determining the TVL on the platform. So bottoming out at about 300 mil in mid-October, and around the same time you can see that this is when the price of Crocoin also began to take off. So the two of these moving essentially in tandem with one another. Now, the other thing I do want to mention is the bridged TVL. This is a new feature on DeFi Llama, and I've been saying this for a long time, that you cannot value the TVL on Cronos only from the Cronos chain, because there is also the Cronos POS chain. This is kind of like the layer 0 of the ecosystem, while the Cronos chain is the layer 1. And this is another 9.06 billion Cro locked up on the chain, actually more than the Cronos chain has itself. So when you factor in the Cronos POS chain, the bridge TVL actually sits at about 1.198 bill, which puts it in 11th place across all chains. And when you think about it like that, I mean, we can see here that it is well behind Optimism with 8.3 bill. And sorry guys, I just got a quick phone call there. Yeah, it's still well behind Optimism with that 8.31 bill, but also ahead of Gnosis by about, by give or take, like 400 mil. So, you know, the Cronos chain here, in my opinion, it is looking pretty good in that rankings if you do take a look at the bridge TVL. And I don't know if this rate of growth will continue, but definitely nice to see that it did in fact go up from February to March in line with meme season and more on-chain activity and all that good stuff. So to wrap things up, I do want to take a quick look at the Crocoin chart as well. And the reason being here is that it actually is holding up pretty nice in my opinion. And it looks like it's maybe following the move that it did make here before it saw another nice move to the upside. So, you know, if you've been with the channel for a while, you know that we were talking about this 5-cent range as a nice area for Crocoin. I did expect it to be sort of like the bear market bottom, and you know, we did more or less bottom out at that 5-cent level, you know, call it like 4.9 cents more or less, but the 5-cent level did prove to hold as really strong support on the weekly. And yeah, from there, this altcoin is up, give or take, about 180%. Now, the one thing I am looking at when it comes to Crocoin is that after it went on this run, okay, we did peak out at about 12.5 cents, and this was relevant because 12.5 cents is actually where Crocoin got rejected before it fell 50%. And when we were in this range here, you know, at that 5-cent level, it really just made sense to me that eventually Crocoin would fill this gap because a lot of the FUD was unwarranted. Crypto.com has continued to grow and expand their operations, and that's the reason we saw this decline in the first place. So, you know, I think it did make a lot of sense for Crocoin to come back up here. And the point is that 12.5-cent range was really relevant. It got rejected here once again in November when it tried to break out, came back down. Now, what we saw here was another move to the upside for Cro, where it actually back tested this 12.5-cent area as a level of support. Additionally, it looks like it may be, you know, kind of making a very similar pennant here where it kind of moves downwards for a little bit and then boom, makes its way back up to the upside. So I am keeping an eye on this chart, and if it can hold this sort of pattern here, and more specifically hold that 12.5-cent level as an area of support, I would expect that we probably see the next significant level that I'm looking for anyways is at that 20-cent area. And as always, I will keep you guys updated on the latest news and price action when it comes to this altcoin. So on that note, I hope you did enjoy the content in today's video. I hope you are all staying happy, safe, and healthy, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out for now.